There's a kind of anger that doesn't yell. It sits in your chest like a stone no one sees. It wakes up with you, eats with you, walks beside you like a shadow too familiar to question. It's not the loud kind of anger. It's the kind that folds its arms at dinner, clenches its jaw in meetings, stays quiet during the apologies that come too late. The kind of anger that doesn't break things. It builds walls. You don't even call it anger anymore. You call it, I'm just tired. You call it, I don't care anymore. But deep down, you remember. You remember what it felt like when they laughed at your pain, when they told you to toughen up, when your tears were met with silence, when your voice was too much, or not enough, when you were asked to carry their storms but never allowed to name your own. So you learned to keep it all in. The hurt turned cold. The cold turned into pressure, and that pressure became your armor. Now people say you seem distant or hard to read. But how can they read you when no one ever taught you how to speak this pain? And yet, here you are, feeling it rise again like a wave with no shore. Maybe that's why you're here now, listening to something you can't explain, because some part of you is tired of holding it in. And what if I told you that this anger you feel isn't your enemy, that it's not a flaw or a failure? What if it's the sound of your soul trying to speak after a lifetime of being interrupted? What if all this time, the fire inside you wasn't trying to burn everything down, but simply trying to be seen? And maybe, just maybe, that rage you carry isn't there to destroy you. It's there to protect the parts of you that no one ever protected. And what if everything you're feeling isn't the end of you, but the beginning of who you really are? They never said it out loud, but you felt it early. Don't be too emotional. Don't be too soft. Don't be too much. So you learned the quiet art of shrinking. You tucked your feelings beneath smiles. You built your sentences carefully, making sure they wouldn't trigger disapproval. You monitored your own heartbeats in case they sounded like weakness. And little by little, you disappeared. Not in a dramatic way, not all at once, but like fog retreating under the weight of the morning sun. Subtle, invisible, final. You became who they needed you to be. Strong, silent, composed. Someone who didn't cry in public. Someone who kept it together. Someone who laughed it off, even when it stung. And every time you did that, you heard a whisper in your body. This isn't me. But you silenced it. Because silence kept the peace. Because pretending made you lovable, at least temporarily. You wore your anger like a second skin, not to scare anyone, but to survive. It became your way of saying, I won't be hurt again. It was your warning sign, your invisible boundary, your silent scream. You didn't know you were building a prison, a glass one. You could still see the world, but nothing could touch you. Not fully, not really. And that's the cruel beauty of self-denial. It keeps you safe and alone. You perform happiness while your soul watches from behind the curtain. You laugh on cue. You nod when you're supposed to. And inside, you wonder if anyone would love the version of you that wasn't rehearsed. So ask yourself, who are you when no one is watching? Who would you be if you stopped performing safety and started honoring the storm? Because here's the truth, no one told you. The version of you that's angry isn't broken. It's the version that remembers. It's the part of you that refused to die quietly. It's the guardian of everything you were forced to suppress. Anger isn't always an attack. Sometimes it's a boundary. Sometimes it's grief wearing armor. Sometimes it's the echo of your unmet needs banging on the walls of a world that didn't want to hear them. They taught you to numb it, to stay calm, to be rational. But you were never meant to be a robot in a human body. You were meant to feel, to tremble, to break open, to weep when it hurts, and scream when it's too much. Not because you're unstable, but because you're alive. And the truth is, your anger isn't a problem, it's a message. But to hear it, you have to stop apologizing for being hurt. You have to stop editing yourself just to be accepted. Because every time you deny your pain, you betray the most sacred parts of you. And you deserve better than a life built on pretending. You deserve breath. You deserve space. You deserve to be unmasked, even if it terrifies you. Because your real life the one you're starving for, is hiding beneath the roles you were forced to play. Let them go. No one gets to define you but you. If your anger could speak, what would it finally say? Write it below like no one's interrupting. No need to explain. No need to filter. Just let the part of you that's been silenced finally be heard. This space is yours now. Let me know if you'd like variations or one tailored for a different emotion. There's a strange kind of silence that follows pain. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that wraps itself around your throat, makes you second-guess your feelings, makes you wonder if you're overreacting, or if anyone would believe you at all. You carry it in your body now, in the tension between your shoulders, in the tightness of your jaw, in the weight behind your eyes when you're smiling, but not really there. And here's the truth. You didn't choose to be angry. You became angry because somewhere along the way, no one made space for your sorrow. Maybe it was when they mocked your tears, or when they walked away when you needed them the most, or when life broke something inside you and everyone else just kept going, as if nothing happened, as if you weren't standing there with bleeding hands, holding the pieces of a dream that would never fit back together. That's how it starts. Not with rage, but with a quiet ache, a grief that had nowhere to go, and so it stayed. It grew roots in your muscles. It whispered stories of unworthiness. It built a fire to keep you warm, and then that fire began to burn. Anger is not the opposite of peace. It's the shadow of unmet pain. It's what happens when your sadness wasn't allowed to breathe. You never wanted to be hard. You never wanted to be cold. You wanted to be held, to be asked what happened, and not rushed through the answer. But life didn't give you that. So you learned how to survive in silence. You started to believe your wounds didn't matter, that being hurt made you a burden, that your softness was a liability. And slowly, the world stopped seeing you, because you stopped showing yourself. This is the cruel irony of suppressed pain. The more invisible it becomes, the more visible your anger gets. People see the sharpness now, but they missed the tenderness that came before it. You're not angry because you're cruel. You're angry because you were kind for too long without being met in return. You were generous with your heart, and the world kept taking without asking how much it cost you. And now you feel it rising, not just the anger, but the buried voice inside it. The child who once cried for comfort and was told to be quiet. The teenager who wanted to scream, but learned to smile instead. The adult who shows up every day looking strong and wonders why no one ever checks in. You are not broken. You are layered, and your pain is not a weakness. It's a record of every time you loved and lost, every time you trusted and were left alone, every time you needed help and were told to be strong. Buddhism teaches that suffering is not the end of the story, it's the doorway. Not something to escape, but something to turn toward, to breathe into, to bow to. Not in surrender, but in respect, because your pain has carried you this far, because there's wisdom in what hurt you. But first, you must feel it, without judging, without fixing, just witnessing the grief, the heartbreak, the unmet need behind the anger. And maybe then, you'll see it was never about being too emotional. You were just never given a safe place to be human. There comes a moment, quiet, barely noticeable, when the weight of holding everything in becomes heavier than the fear of letting go. You don't always recognize it at first. It might come as exhaustion, as a sigh you didn't know you were holding, as the strange ache of realizing you don't want to keep pretending anymore. This is the beginning of detachment, not from life, not from love, but from the false identity you wore to survive. You were never meant to carry rage like a passport. You were never meant to walk through the world armored in silence. But when no one taught you how to be seen safely, anger became your shield. Tension became your language. Control became your comfort. Now, something inside you whispers, "What if I don't need this anymore?" And that whisper is everything. Detachment, in the Buddhist sense, is not about becoming cold. It's about becoming light. It's not about stopping love. It's about loving without chains, without needing to control, prove, or perform. Letting go of your anger doesn't mean betraying yourself. It means finally trusting that you are safe without it. You begin to drop the armor, not all at once, but piece by piece. You notice the way your shoulders relax when you no longer have to win every battle. You notice how silence feels different when it's chosen, not forced. You notice how your breath deepens when you're not rehearsing who to be. This is not weakness, it's clarity. It's the soft power of someone who has nothing left to defend, because they're no longer hiding. And you begin to see, your anger wasn't your essence. It was your echo, a reflection of everything you weren't allowed to feel safely. Now you can feel it all, the sorrow, the tenderness, the grief that was waiting beneath the fire. There's no rush, no dramatic moment of release, just a slow return, like waves softening the edges of a stone. And here's the paradox. The less you try to protect your pain, the less you need to. You don't need to be loud to be heard. You don't need to be hard to be safe. You don't need to be angry to be powerful. You are already enough, without the defense mechanisms. You are allowed to walk through life without a story to prove, without a mask to wear, without the need to be tough. You are allowed to just be, to breathe, to soften, to exist without apology. Detachment isn't walking away from life. It's walking into life without the chains of who you thought you had to be. And the moment you do that, the moment you let go of being the angry one, the guarded one, the always in control one, you meet someone else, yourself. Not the version edited for survival, but the one that feels like home. There is a silence that doesn't mean emptiness. It's the silence after the storm, when the wind stops yelling, and you realize you survived something that once felt unbearable. This is where healing begins, not in words, not in victories, but in the stillness that comes when you stop trying to fix what hurt you and begin to simply be with it. You don't need to understand it all. You don't need to explain why it happened. You just need to sit beside it, like you would sit beside a friend who's grieving, not to give answers, but to offer presence. This is what no one taught you, that you are allowed to rest here. You are allowed to be exactly where you are, not healed, not perfect, just real. Because the truth is, you've been fighting for so long, fighting to be understood, fighting to be strong, fighting to not fall apart. And what if now? The most radical thing you can do is stop fighting, not give up, not shut down, but surrender to the truth of what is, to the body that's tired, to the heart that's been carrying too much. Surrender is not weakness. It's the deepest form of courage. It's saying, I no longer need to become someone else to be worthy of peace. And when you let go of the performance, when you sit with yourself in that sacred quiet, you begin to hear things that were once buried. You hear the softness beneath the rage, the longing beneath the silence, the voice that says, I just wanted to be loved as I am. And maybe for the first time, you're the one who listens. No rush, no advice, just the warmth of your own presence. This is the Buddhist path, not to escape pain, but to embrace reality with compassion. To bow to what is true, even when it's messy, even when it still aches. You stop running from yourself, and something strange happens. The pain doesn't disappear, but it changes shape. It becomes gentler. It becomes wisdom. It becomes a part of you that no longer needs to scream to be heard. And maybe that's the most beautiful part. Not that your anger vanished, but that it softened into understanding. That your story didn't end in fire, but in quiet truth. Because sometimes healing doesn't look like a miracle. It looks like breathing without bracing. It looks like being alone without feeling abandoned. It looks like waking up and not needing to wear a mask. So here's the invitation. Let go of the fight. Let go of the noise. Let go of the version of you that had to survive by being angry. And meet yourself here, in the stillness, in the breath, in the love that no longer needs to be earned. Maybe peace was never about fixing anything. Maybe it was always about finally hearing the part of you that's been whispering, I'm still here, and I'm enough. So rest now. You've carried this for long enough. You've done your best with what you had. And maybe all that's left now is to let the silence do what no one else ever did. Hold you.